A brief little run of show, what we're going to be talking about tonight. We're going to be hearing from our county staff about our 10-year roadway capacity construction projects. As part of our budget review this past January through March, we heard a lot about new roadway projects that are being considered by the county. So now we're doing here a presentation where we take a look back at some of the ones we've done recently and see how they have affected our transportation system, how much they've cost, and how they've improved the surrounding transportation network. Then we're also going to hear from our county staff about different traffic calming and safety roadway projects. This board cares a lot about the safety of our roadways. It's something we spent a lot of time talking about. I know we will continue to do so in the future. So how do we keep our roadways safe? What are some of the strategies and infrastructure improvements that are available to us to help achieve those goals? So that's kind of what we'll be doing here this evening. I want to thank everyone in the audience and also watching at home on Orange TV. Football doesn't start for a couple hours, so there's plenty of time to hang out with TransMAC until kickoff starts. So thank you for joining us. So before we're going to get started with the Pledge of Allegiance, would be remiss not to notice the date I mentioned early up. It is September 11th, 24 years ago. One of the biggest tragedies in our country's history. Took many lives of our residents and affected many families. So if we could, before we get to the Pledge of Allegiance, I would like to start with a moment of silence for all the lives lost and all the families affected on September 11, 2001. Thank you. Okay, can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so the first thing on our agenda tonight will be public comment. I have here one public comment card. If anyone is in the audience is interested in speaking and has not filled out a card, we'll give the opportunity to speak and then just fill out a card after you're done. But our first public speaker is Mr. David Shepard. Welcome. If you could state your name, address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
I'm David Shepard. I'm a resident of District 5. My address is exempt by Florida statute. So I'm here to talk about East River Falcons Boulevard. I know I've actually sat down with the principal. There's improvement projects to State Road 50 that have now gotten pushed back to 2027. But some of the ones that did get approved is on the image on the right is the yellow line, which is supposed to be only for bus access to the bus depot. And the traffic light that's now going to allow people from the neighborhood to access that road because there's nothing that stops residential traffic from utilizing that service road. Then other image is the actual East River Falcons way that comes out. There's a small orange mark on the road near Fire Station 82. The road is in such disrepair there because they used to allow traffic out the backside of the parking lot. But due to the disrepair of the road, they stopped allowing students and parents to use that road, which limits the ability for anybody traveling from Wedgefield to the school to a 6 or 7 lane traffic lane to get into the school. And now we're going to have the excess traffic with development and everything else. So I was just kind of bringing it to your guys' attention that if there's somewhere in the plan or extra transportation dollars that some of these may have been overlooked or just not on the radar due to the fact that we're the undeveloped part of Orange County.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Shepard. Appreciate your attendance here this evening. Yeah, this is out. This is very close to where I'm from as well. So Chuliota Road 419 is something that is under study right now and something this board has already looked at, and I think they're still working through that process. That's a very complicated area there, especially by that school. Being a high school, there's one way in and one way out. I know it's the traffic there, they have a lot of issues that I know the school board is looking at, but also the Board of County Commission is continuing to study and try to make some improvements there. Something that this board will be looking at. So thank you, Mr. Shepard. Okay, I see another member of the public who may want to come and address this board, Mr. Staccardo. Present yourself.
Thank you, sir. Eugene Cigarro, 331 Roswell Avenue, Orlando, Florida. I was going to prepare something, but I'm going to just pitch this. It's the Sunrail connection to the airport. I've made 2 imagery presentations on that. My ask is, it would be nice if we can do a small-scale study, just to, what would it cost to connect us today to that, not going out to connect all the tourist area, which is a future, but can we just get the lowest thing done now? Because we have the rail today that connects the airport. We just had to do the final less than 2,000 meters to get to the actual concourse. So it would be interesting to do just a small study with the budget that you might have and ask, what would it cost? Because, and what would it generate revenue-wise? Because physically connecting to the airport, I think, would be a big win for our community. So that would be my only ask here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Staccardo.
Now I have to sign.
Yes, can we get a card for Mr. Staccardo to fill out, please? Okay. Any other members of the public who would like to address this commission at this time but have not yet filled out a card? Okay, thank you so much for our public commenters here this evening. We'll do this again next time. Always a chance for you. Love to come and listen to the public and hear. We are the public. We are you, so we love to hear, have the public come out and let us know what their concerns are. Okay, so our next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, which is the approval and execution of the minutes of our August 24, 2025 meeting. Any commission members and anyone see any issues with the minutes prior to a motion for approval? Any edits, any additions? Okay, is there a motion to approve?
Move that we approve.
Seconded.
Okay, motion to approve the minutes by Member Olson, seconded by Member Ferguson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. Okay, on to tonight's big topic. So first, I mentioned we're going to hear a presentation from Lauren Torres, I believe, of our liaison to public works staff, taking a look back at our 10-year, the projects of road expansions that we've completed in the past 10 years and see about how that, much it's cost us and how it has worked for improving our transportation system. Okay, Ms. Torres, welcome.
Thank you, members. So tonight we'll be talking about the cover the roadway projects within the last 10 years here in the county. We're first going to go over some key factors for those members that may be unaware of some of the definitions of some of the things that we use to kind of measure performance on roadways, like level of service, roadway classification, and annual average daily traffic. We'll talk a little bit about roadway project funding types, then go into an overview of the 10 years of roadway projects, and we've separated them out into first CIP projects and then developer finance projects. So level of service, or LOS, is a roadway performance measure that takes different factors into account, including the flow of traffic, the speed, delay, user experience. And these levels of services are graded from A, no congestion, to F, heavy congestion. Each roadway classification has a different role on the overall transportation network. So freeways and expressways, they carry large volumes of traffic over long distances. An example of that would be I-4. Arterial roads carry high volumes over long segments connecting major points in a network. An example of that would be State Road 50. Collector roads collect traffic from the local areas and connect to arterials. An example of that would be a Lake Underhill Road. And then our local roads, low volume, provide direct access to properties and destinations. So those would be similar to subdivision roads. So the way that we measure level of service is in 2 ways. It's a combination. So we look at we follow the Florida Department of Transportation's functional classification of roads to calculate the level of service. And then we also have what we call an adopted level of service, which is based on actual data that we've collected recently, that also takes into account the information from the county's concurrency management system that considers the available number of trips available on a corridor. So level of service tells us how well a roadway operates under traffic demand, but the acceptable standard depends on what the road is meant to do. High-speed freeways are held to a higher level of service standard, while local streets can tolerate more congestion because access and safety matter more than traffic flow. LOS categories may also account for large ranges in traffic volume while still having a similar level of service, and you'll see that through the presentation. So these level of services currently only include vehicles, no other modes of transportation. The county is currently working on a level of service classification system that takes the surrounding area context classification into account. That way we can also look at how pedestrians are traveling, how they're being affected, how bicyclists are being affected by certain volumes on the roadway. And this will help to better identify the needs of all our road users. Annual average daily traffic, or AADT, represents traffic volume that is averaged out over a year. Now, we also have something that's called peak hour traffic. There were a couple of the studies, as I was reviewing them, that really focus more on the peak hour traffic. And that peak hour is basically the hour of the day, usually in the afternoon, when traffic is at its highest. Some of the differences between annual average daily traffic and peak hour include a real focus on capacity limitations with peak hour traffic, intersection analyses, accounts for directional flow, and also reveals the time of day demand patterns. Usually, from a design perspective, the peak hour traffic gives us a better idea on where we need to put traffic signals, where we need to put left turn lanes, right turn lanes, that kind of thing. Projections of future AADT are derived from models that rely on a lot of assumptions. So the studies that I will be referring to that led to these roads were modeled, and these models can sometimes provide some inaccuracies, and some of these include unforeseen events like recessions, natural disasters, pandemics, land use and development changes. Growth rates are usually steady or assumed to be steady in modeling, but sometimes there's unexpected growth rates. Policy or infrastructure changes like new toll facilities, parallel facilities, increases in mobility options, and also behavioral shifts. A lot of people are now remote working, not something that we considered in models 10 years ago. Daylight savings time can also be a factor. Some of our elderly or people with maybe lower vision, may not travel during that time of day. And then also technological advances like the autonomous vehicles, new types of intersections and detections, and then web mapping platforms, for instance, Apple Maps, Waze, Google Maps. They will show us the best, fastest way to get to a destination, but they may also use roads that were not built for that type of volume of traffic. So we'll talk a little bit about roadway funding types. This should seem familiar to all of you. For developer finance projects, these were financed by the developer, and they were reimbursed through transportation impact fees and proportionate share funds. Now, there are times that there were roadway agreements that included possibly some additional revenue from the county. It all depends on the roadway agreement at that time for that particular corridor. CIP projects, that funding all comes from transportation impact fees, proportionate share, grant funding, gas tax, general funds, sales tax, and federal funds. So now we'll talk about the 10 years of roadway projects. Just a quick overview. So like I said, they include both CIP and developer finance projects. Costs are only provided for the CIP projects if later on the members would like to see how the developers were reimbursed in transportation impact fees and proportionate share funds. We can provide that information at a later time. Just to bring to your attention, 45% of all the projects we're going to talk about today were developer finance funds. So we'll cover CIP projects first.
Sorry, what does CIP stand for?
Capital improvement projects, I'm sorry. So we'll talk about capital improvement projects first. So Alafaya Trail is a 4-lane divided roadway with a 10-foot wide shared use path. It was completed in 2015. The engineer's estimated cost was $30.7 million. The county actually paid $23.4 million for this project. As you can see, the level of service was projected this year in 2025 to be a level of service F. It's actually operating at a level of service C. If you look at the volumes, you see there's a bit of a difference in those volumes, mostly because there was an assumption made that people would use Alafaya Trail to connect to Innovation Way to take the 528. That never quite happened, so.
So just to clarify something, Lauren.
Yeah.
So when this Alafaya Trail, when it was studied for widening, they projected at that time, what they thought the level of service would be in 2025, and they thought
Yes.
it would be an F back when they studied it. Do we know when they studied it?
Not sure the year. It's probably in the early 2000s. I can get you an answer.
I mean,
to that.
judging from the
Yeah.
ones we've seen in other meetings, I'm sure it was quite some time ago.
Yeah.
So at that time, they projected in 2025 it would be a level of service F, based on that peak hour volume shown there. But what it's actually operating at right now is a C,
Level of
because
service C.
because of that the lower volumes.
Yes.
Or one of the reasons. Being
One of the reasons, yes,
being
is
the
the
lower
lower
volumes.
volumes.
Okay. Thank you.
So Boggy Creek Road South, it's a 4-lane divided with sidewalks and bike lanes. It was completed in 2024. The engineer's estimated cost was $8 million, and the actual cost was $9.5 million. Now, if we go down to the level of service, we see that in 2030, it's projected to be at a level of service F, and the actual level of service it's currently operating on is a level of service F. So the question becomes, why would the county spend money on a project that they knew was going to be a level of service F, right? Some of those reasons are it's one of the few direct connections from Osceola County. Another reason, too, is the reason why the study said that we would be operating at a level of service F in 2030 was because of the cross-section that the county decided to go with. In order to get a better level of service, we would have had to 6-lane this facility based on the modeling. So the county decided to take a wait-and-see approach. There were a lot of variables at the time. There was discussions about how the connections to State Road 417 and Osceola Parkway were going to affect these volumes. There was also a concern from a safety perspective, anything larger than 4 lanes is very difficult for pedestrians to maneuver. So that's one of the reasons it was only 4-lane. But the county did acquire the additional right-of-way that was required for the 6-laning of this facility. So this is one of the corridors that I would say has a great opportunity for maybe the TransMAC committee to take a look at, to see if maybe there are other innovative ways to help with some of the congestions that is being experienced now, and to improve that travel through Boggy Creek Road.
Sorry again.
Yeah.
And what would level of service E be? Is that like
So
lower
it's just
than
a little
F,
bit.
or-
It's just a little bit better than F. So
Okay, a little bit better than
yeah, it's a little bit better than F. Yeah.
And for that Boggy Creek area, is that the area by Lake Nona that's going to continue to grow and develop as a kind of the next growth area of Orange County? Or is this, it looks a little developed there on maybe.
Yeah, on the west side
On
there
the
is
west
a-
side, but about the east side. So is this projected probably, am I right about the location of this?
It's close to the Lake Nona area, absolutely. And
Okay.
I'm sure there will be more development as we go on. Sometimes it's build it and they will come, so we
For
built
sure.
Boggy Creek. It's still an important connection, though. So the connection to Osceola County to that volume is going to continue to grow. So, which is why, if we have the right-of-way currently, are there other things that we can do within that right-of-way to kind of help with those volumes? I'm going to say Econ Trail because I always get this pronunciation wrong. So Econ Trail, 4-lane divided roadway with sidewalks and a 4-foot wide bike lanes. It was completed in 2015. The engineer's estimated cost for this project was $7.6 million. The county spent $8.1 million. The projected level of service for 2027 is a level of service D. We currently are operating at a level of service C in 2025. Now, along with some of the other reasons that we went over earlier, that might be why the volumes are a little bit lower. I know we still have 2 years, but could be because Valencia College didn't do any expansions. So some of that was predicted in the model that there'd be some expansions on Valencia, and that did not take place. Holden Avenue. So this one's a little different in that it was part of the long-range transportation plan. It was one of those east-west connectors that was really needed to help with the congestion that was already being experienced on other east-west connectors in this area, like Oak Ridge and Michigan and Lancaster. So this particular project includes 4-lane divided roadway with 4-foot wide bike lanes. It was completed in 2023. The engineer's estimated cost was $12.9 million. The county spent $22.6 million on this project, and is currently operating at a level of service D.
Question on that is, the other estimates were really relatively close given expansion. I'm sure there's good rationale behind the difference. It's quite significant.
Prices of materials, prices of labor. This was completed in 2023, so that's about 2 years ago. So as we've gone on in time, everything has become more expensive.
I just want to make sure that we stress earlier, right? I remember when Brett was coming in some of the early meetings, and he told us that the price of asphalt had doubled or tripled, right? And then if you just look at that alone, and I don't know how the county deals with that.
International Drive. So this project added an additional lane on each side to International Drive within this corridor. So it is now a 6-lane divided roadway with sidewalks. It was completed in 2019. The engineer's estimated cost was $13.4 million, and the county spent $21.6 million on this project. The projected level of service for 2030 is a level of service C, and we're right about there with our adopted level of service for 2025 also being a level of service C.
Just to make a note, that road is being used by run number 8 for links. So there's mass transit in that road.
And sorry, so this one is 4 years before, right? Is this still reflecting those cost increases? Because I think the way I understood it was that a lot of it was the post-pandemic, everything became more expensive. Mm-hmm. Has this just been a mounting issue?
I think so, and there may have been other complications. Sometimes when you do roadway projects, certain things that may, until you start digging the road up is when you realize that there may have been some things that you had not accounted for. Things like utilities, maybe.
I mean, I totally get it. If it's 6 lanes,
Mm-hmm.
You're not talking about this is not an area of the county that's not developed. I can see how there's a lot of factors there, but yeah, I was just more curious if there was something specific that had taken place that we would point to and go, oh, in this project, this thing, but it's just across
Just
the board,
overall, and also think about with a 6-lane facility, especially as the volumes that International Drive carries, imagine what the maintenance of traffic of that would have been. So how expensive that would have been.
Is some of that also hit the aspect of the purchasing the right of way, that when you expand it, that some of the cost that...
I think that right of way already existed for that. So same thing, it was the kind of thing where we knew we would need to probably expand later, so the right of way was already there.
Actually, sorry, I have one more question. So this is what I was trying to get at is I guess what I'm trying to is there a uniform cost and return across the amount of lanes that are being constructed? Do we know, okay, we're going to do a 4-lane road, so then we anticipate 10% of budget shift, but then if it goes to a 6-lane road, the budget shift could go to 20%. Is that what we're looking at in reality? Is it the bigger the road is, the more likely it is that that we're gonna tack on unanticipated expenses at the end, or are those factors kind of distinct?
No, from my experience, yes. So that's exactly what happens. So you get a project this large, and although you do your best to kind of estimate what the prices may be, there may be fluctuations in the prices. You may have some complications. Like the example I gave you for means of traffic. Sometimes even when you do the work could make a big difference. If it's if you had a lot of events going on, if it was in the middle of summer when it took place, you had a lot of tourists, there were so many factors that could have went into why the actual cost was more than what had been estimated. And also, I hate to say it, but it could be that maybe there were some missing items from the engineer's estimated cost. So
Sure,
things happen.
thanks.
Ms. Torres, just there's all, is the time factor between the time that the engineer's estimate's being done during the design phase or at the end of the design phase, and then you go through the right-of-way acquisition and the construction bidding. Normally, there's a number of years of lag between this and that. So is that cost estimate the design level cost estimate compared to the actual construction cost? How many years might have gone?
This
between
engineer's
those?
cost estimate was actually based on the original, it was based on the original design and that was in 2009, right? So that would have been 10 years before we actually went to construction. Or when construction was
10
completed,
years
excuse
of
me.
inflation in between.
Right, and then like projecting the cost at the design stage versus projecting the cost at the construction phase, like we're looking at essentially like maximum variance. Thank you.
John Young Parkway. This is another project where we added an additional lane on each side. It is now an 8-lane divided roadway with sidewalks. It was completed in 2015. Again, the engineer's estimated cost was $14 million, and we paid $21.6 million for this project. If you looked at the projected level of service, this is an industrial area. It was projected at a level of service E. For 2030, we're actually operating at a level of service C. So this could also be because, we still have 5 years, but this could also be because there are continuous right turn lanes throughout this corridor. That helps with delay. So delay is one of those things that we look at when it comes to level of service, so people aren't constantly stopping in order to let vehicles turn right because we've got dedicated right turn lanes. Valencia College Lane. This is a 4-lane divided with sidewalks and bike lanes. It was completed in 2016. The engineer's estimated cost was $6.7 million. The actual cost was $6.2 million. The projected level of service was at a level of service D. It's actually operating this year at a level of service C. And if you look at the volumes, there seems to be a big difference between the volumes there. Again, one of the many factors that could have attributed to this would have been Valencia campus not expanding the way it was proposed to, thought that it would.
Lauren, that's also a lane that is used by lanes number 15. So I'm seeing a trend. Roads that share lanes buses have a lower amount of trips.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up.
And not like, at the risk of sounding somewhat punitive, when, like if the county says, okay, yeah, Valencia, you're going to expand, all this stuff's going on, we're going to build more roads, then when that doesn't happen, right, it's not like, oh, we got to go back and like hold you accountable and something must be done. But do we have anything in place for like, okay, that happened and now next time Valencia, you're going to come to us and it's like, well, do we believe you this time? Like, I think that's where maybe I could see concern coming from the public, right? Of, well, we built the road and then you didn't use it and now we can't get the money back and like, what do we do next time?
Well, this is an interesting subject because if you look at the adopted for this year at 15,000, that's pretty low, right? So is there other innovative improvements that TransMAC could consider along a corridor like this because you're not getting that volume that was originally thought? So not so much as being punitive, but maybe going back now and saying maybe there's something different we can do to kind of provide more access for other modes of travel.
Yeah, because I think that's what we want to avoid, spending the money and then like it's a lot of money, it should deliver value. How can we make sure that that value is not lost?
Yeah, like that's a good point. I'm thinking about, we have a 4-lane divided with sidewalks and bike lanes. I'm wondering what kind of bike lanes those look like on that. By Valencia, college students traditionally like to use other forms of transportation.
What kind of skate spots could we put on
Of
that
course,
road?
we always
There you
got to
go.
think about the skate spots. Like, how wide are those travel lanes? Could they be restriped
Yes.
and provide some room for a protected bike lane?
Just stripe them in black.
Yeah. Got to make sure they're the right color. We know that. But yeah, that's an interesting point to think about. Excess capacity, and if there are ways that TransMAC can think about repurposing or changing some way in which it's design, which we have for a design. So,
And I wonder if there's other corridors within the county like this.
yeah.
Weatherby Road. So it's 4-lane divided with a 10-foot wide shared use path. It was completed in 2016. The engineer's estimated cost was $11.4 million. The actual cost was $9.1 million. The projected level of service during the modeling for 2030 was a level of service D. It was adopted, it's currently, we call it adopted because it needs to be adopted through the BCC, but our current level of service is a level of service C. So if you look again here, same thing, volume seems to be a little different. Almost a 10,000 vehicle difference between a level of service D and a level of service C. Some of the reasons why that might have happened is that technology has gotten better. Our intersection signal timing has improved. So even though we're carrying more volume, we're being more efficient with the way we're carrying that volume through the corridor.
Lauren, there was a 18-wheeler freight diversion study
Yes,
for that area.
yes,
Are 18-wheelers allowed in Weatherby Road or not?
yes. Okay.
They're allowed? Okay, by the way, Links 418 runs through there too. And we got the medal with Stonerail Station there too. Very interesting. Thank you.
And now we'll go over the developer finance projects. Again, the costs are not provided with these projects, but if the commission is interested, we can get you those costs from the roadway agreements. Avalon Road, Village H, segment 1 through 4 is a 4-lane divided roadway with a 10-foot wide shared use path. It's completed in 2023. It was projected to be at a level of service F by 2037. Currently, it's operating a level of service C, and if you look at those volumes, there's a big difference there. But I just want to say that with all of these roadway segments that we're going to review in the Horizons West area, you have to think about the fact that what the staff at the time was thinking about was those Lake County connections, how those Lake County connections were going to affect all the roads here. So it's probably why there's that big difference between volumes. But again, also, we have some time. Is this something that TransMAC can be looking at to see what other kind of innovative technology-based solutions that we can implement so that way when we get to 2037 and we have that extra volume, we're not operating at a level of service F. So we do have some time.
And when these projects come up, does the county engineer and design and then the developer is tasked with building it, or how does that kind of collaboration take place?
So, like I discussed earlier, usually what happens if it's developer finance, the developer flips the bill and they pay for the roadway, but then they get reimbursed from the county through transportation impact fee funds, also proportionate share fund, not funding, but credits, I should say, excuse me. So they're credits. So instead of having to pay those transportation impact fees, they get credit for those transportation impact fees to help with the actual funding of the road.
So does the county so the county still oversees the construction of the road, like it's the county's project, it's just the developer's money?
Developers, yeah, they still have to go through the permitting process and everything. Destination Parkway, 4-lane divided roadway with sidewalks. It was completed in 2019. This was more just to help with east-west connectivity in this area, and it was just to connect the existing portions of Trade Show Boulevard and Universal Boulevard. There is no level of service on these because the county's concurrency management system that records these levels of services is not recording on this particular area. So,
And why would that be?
just something, someone may not have brought it up yet.
Okay.
So there's no, my understanding of how the concurrency management system works is it's usually based on the roads that were part of the long-range planning system. If they were possibly larger roads, kind of like the ones that we were just speaking about earlier in Horizons West, those are the kinds of roads that we keep level of service on. This is doesn't carry as much traffic as you can see, so that's probably why they're not.
Lauren, whatever happened to the trade show expansion is supposed to connect to the new Universal Studios, Epic Universe.
I'll let Brian talk
Because
about
right there, folks, that's the Sunshine Corridor. If the Sunshine Corridor gets approved and gets funded, that's where you're going to have the Bryan Line Stormville Station right there.
Right, that project's under design right now, so they're going through the process. That particular road will also include a dedicated transit lane.
A
So-
BRT lane.
Yeah.
Darrell Carter Parkway Connector Road. This is a 4-lane roadway with 10-foot wide shared use path and a bike lane. It was completed in 2022. It's critical to the overall network in this area. So this was basically also built for the Lake Buena Vista High School. So that has to do, schools are usually built because populations increase. So the OCPS realized that they were going to need a school there, so the developer went ahead and built this roadway in order to make that connection for the school. Fakay Road, segment F. So this is a 4-lane divided roadway with 10-foot wide shared use path. It was completed in 2017. The projected level of service for 2030 was a level of service F. We're in 2025 and we're at level of service C. So Fakay Road is another example of extra right-of-way that we have, that we've obtained during the initial process. So again, another opportunity possibly for TransMAC to look at roadways like this to see if there are other innovative technological solutions that we can make to some of these corridors in order to help with level of service later on.
Could we go back one slide? With regard to the schools,
Mm-hmm.
with their census down 6,500, that's obviously going to have an impact going forward. Did that impact this project?
No, because it was completed in 2022. New Independence Parkway West, a 4-lane divided roadway with 10-foot wide shared use paths and bike lanes. It was completed in 2021. The projected level of service in 2030 was supposed to be a C, about almost 14,000 vehicles. We seem to be about that spot in 2025, but still at a level of service C with a little over 10,000 vehicles. Porter Road, a 4-lane divided roadway with a 10-foot wide shared use path. It was completed in 2019. It was projected to be a level of service D. It is currently at a level of service D, but if you look at those volumes at the bottom, there does seem to be a significant difference between those two. So, a couple reasons. Maybe some of the reasons we talked about, the modeling may not have been super accurate at this location. Also, maybe some of so earlier in the presentation, I talked about we not only looked at roadway classification and delay, we also looked at the number of trips that were available within that corridor. That may be why we're at a level of service D. We've used almost all the trips within that corridor, so there may be a few reasons why we're at a level of service D with that volume.
Ms. Torres, are you possibly including some of the planned growth in that level of service?
For 2030?
For the adopted 25, at 6,000.
I know, I checked the numbers 4 times.
Okay.
I checked the numbers, I had
So
the
it's
same
not
thing.
including the planned growth in there?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay.
Sorry, when you said, what was it, the used trips?
Right,
What
so
does that
there
refer
are a
to?
number of trips that are available within a certain corridor to make sure that we're meeting a certain level of service. Remember, we talked about how the transportation impact fees, that's connected to the number of trips that are available within a certain corridor.
And so, sorry, trips available, is that, what, can you help me understand what that refers to?
So depending on the type of development that you have, there are a certain number of trips that may be allotted to that, right? So, for instance, number of trips that might be allotted to a Circle K is going to be different than maybe the number of trips allotted to a subdivision.
Okay, so it's in terms of like planning, if we build this, it will cause this many people to travel to and from it.
Right, so we're continually trying to make sure that our roadways aren't failing, so
Got it.
we allot a certain number of trips on certain corridors.
Is that level of service impacted because Avalon converts to a 2-lane right at that turn?
It may be. I mean, like we talked about earlier, just like in certain areas where you have an even better level of service, even though the volume's higher because of technology or things like that, you know, what the signal timing is, it could be the opposite here.
Lauren, and Mohammed, I think you made the question about 4 months ago regarding if they take into consideration existing lanes bus route through a different road, through a particular road. So those right now, when they do the traffic study, do they take into consideration if there's a links route there taking trips out? Does that happen right now or not?
When they do the studies, they should be taking all of that into consideration.
Including
yes.
the links bus stops?
Yeah, if they were there at the time, yes.
There you go. If they were there at the time. Got it.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is Horizon West, so I don't
So there's
think
no
we're
bus
taking anything.
Got it. All right.
Reams Road, a 4-lane divided roadway with a 10-foot wide shared use path. It was completed in 2019, so we're currently operating at a level of service C. And the level of service in 2017, when the study was, the original 2017 projected was, I'm sorry, the 2017 was the study date. That's when, before the expansion took place, sorry. That's before the expansion took place. It was about 800 vehicles. As of today, it's looking at 19,000 vehicles. It's still operating at a level of service C, though, because of the additional lanes that were added. Rouse Road, a 4-lane divided with sidewalks and bike lanes. It was completed in 2015. Projected level of service was at D. We're actually operating at a level of service C. So again, this could be because our intersections, our signalized intersections are a little bit more efficient getting traffic through. People might be working from home. Some of the items that we talked about earlier. And Seidel Road is a 4-lane divided with a 10-foot wide shared use path. It was completed in 2020. It was projected at a level of service C in 2030, and it is operating at about a level of service C today. So as a quick summary, in most, not all cases, the future traffic projections were pretty close, were valid. I think it's important at this point to, as we were talking about those areas where we have the opportunity, we have the room, leveraging technology and innovation can help address some of the congestion and safety challenges. Orange County's population is projected to surpass 2 million by 2050, comparable to, in scale to cities like New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, and Houston, according to the U.S. Census data. And all of those cities that I've mentioned have a combination of either subways, buses, and light rail. Any questions?
Thank you, Lauren. Yeah, just as, for a little bit of context for the commission, also for members of the public as well, this was a presentation that I requested. As I mentioned at the top, one of our things within our purview is to look at our past expenditures and see how they have worked for us. And we know from our budgetary work earlier this year and from just looking at the cost figures here that these are some of the most expensive things that we do in Orange County. So I thought it was pertinent for us to take a look at, you know, how they have worked and how much they have cost us. So I have a question. So going back to the definition of level of service, and I think you mentioned this, but I want to make sure I understand. Traditionally, level of service is that they are only looking at how vehicles are moving through a corridor. So if someone is walking, biking, or using a scooter as a form of transportation through a corridor, traditionally, basically that has not been taken into account. They don't care. Like, it's only about how the vehicles have been moving, not how the other people have been moving. But then maybe that's changing?
Right, so that's the, with the context classification-based level of service, that the project that the county is working on right now, that will take those kinds of situations into account. For instance, if you're in an urban area, there are certain different things that you need to be looking at. You might be looking at a lot more pedestrian volume. Whereas if you're completely in an area that's really rural, you may not have as many pedestrians walking around. So that's going to affect that level of service between those two roads.
Okay, so, and we're still considering that. So even say we do studies next year on roadways, we're still not going to be, until that is changed at the county, we're still not going to be considering movement of individuals outside vehicles until we finalize that.
No,
update?
I wouldn't say that. I can
Okay.
say that we are now looking at different types of travel. I mean, you have to think about the open space, right? So the time a lot of these projects were done, there was nothing there. So now we have a lot more information. We know a lot more. And I think we have a better handle on, the kinds of roads that we want to see, that all has to do with some of the Vision 2050 items that we've been working on, so. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, to answer the question directly, yes, we are integrating that into our studies. Most recently, the study on University Boulevard by Full Sail, we analyzed the level of service before and after for bicycles and pedestrians. So we are integrating that in. We're focused on multimodal levels of service.
Great. Thank you, Ryan. And also level of service, does that consider the safety of the roadway, or is it just about how many vehicles we can pump through it? If people are getting hit, as long as it's an A, A's an A, right?
I don't want to, it's based on congestion currently, yes, so I'm going to
Okay,
say that.
so not
Yeah.
based on safety, okay. Rodney?
Thank you. It was really interesting to see how accurate some of the forecasts were and how inaccurate others were, and I appreciate the explanation as well. Well, what are we doing now to refine that and to maybe make that what are we doing at this point to better forecast?
I'll let Brian take that one.
Well, as Member Abdallah is well familiar, the changes in modeling have come a long way. It's a little different. You could expand on that as well. A lot of focus on growth rates. Those have a big effect on the outcomes of the models. We have the ability to do micro simulations much easier now with the different modeling packages. There's different focuses of modeling, particularly just on intersections that help us analyze and predict the outcomes. But at the end of the day, these are still models subject to human behavior and response. And they don't respond well to recessions, pandemics, and other things that tend to stretch the level of capacity of the roadway corridors. And that has an effect. And the economic factors. When we have the recessions, the lanes are there, there's just not as many people using them, so it allows the capacity to stretch many more years. So there's certain things, I guess in essence, the technology has helped us out for better predicting this stuff, but there's other things that just we cannot predict.
Well, thank you. And there was no implication at all that I think the work that you guys are doing is absolutely incredible. And some of it is a matter of guessing the best guess. And it's great when you hit it and not so when you don't. But I'm confident that what you're doing and your programming going forward is in the best interest of the community. Thank you.
Following up on Rod's question about capacity, for the roads that are significantly under the projected capacity, would it be fair, because of that, what's called excess capacity, would it be fair to characterize those roads as overbuilt at this point?
Well, I guess it depends on the way you look at it. If you're asking me personally, I look at it as possibility, opportunity, right? So if we've got it, we've got the right-of-way, or we even have the facility built, it would make it a lot easier to make some of the safety changes or some of the innovations or some of the things that I think the community would like to see. So I guess it depends on how you look at it.
I mean, I think a lot of people would look at those
Yeah.
higher levels of service than we projected and those lower vehicle counts. It's like, oh, that's a good thing. People are able to move through this corridor more quickly. But are there any downsides to saying having a road that is basically too big or too wide for the amount of cars that are currently traveling on it? Is that always a good thing, or are there downsides to that?
Well, there are absolutely downsides because you have higher vehicle speeds. There's no friction because there's not more vehicles on that road. So Absolutely, but also why, there is opportunity on those roads to create areas, and we're going to talk a little bit about traffic calming soon. There may be traffic calming tools that we can use to slow those roads down, slow the drivers down on those roads.
I feel like that really highlights, this point that I've brought up a number of times. It's that the county is responsible and accountable for the roads, and the county can do nothing to control the behaviors of the drivers, right, when they're in their cars. And I don't need to sidetrack us, but just goes back to, again, I think that when we want to talk about getting to the ideal level of transportation system here, it's like we need some kind of oversight. We need some kind of soft social tool that creates that idea of accountability. Because when people don't have it and they think they have more freedom, they speed and they're more likely to hurt someone. And when they see someone parked in a squad car at the intersection, they're twice as likely to stop, right? And yeah.
Patrick.
First, I just wanted to say excellent presentation. Appreciate the information. I know this is going to be a generalization, but I'm just curious. Overall, when you're looking at it and you're forecasting, is the rule of thumb either to maintain current level of service or improve by 1 or 2, like just as a generalization, just from my understanding?
I think overall you'd want to improve that level of service. So especially when you're looking at projections later on, one of the Boggy Creek, I think, was one of the projections that I discussed at the time of the study. Even though it was projected at a level of service F with just 4 lanes, county decided to kind of take a wait and see perspective instead of just building out a 6-lane facility.
So kind of the goal would be 1 level or even 2? I know it's generalization, just more for my information to understand.
I would think that from a modeling perspective, you want to create a roadway that's safe while still having a high level of service. So if that's 1 or 2, it all depends.
Okay, thank you.
Mohammed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Torres, I know you mentioned that the costs of the developer-funded projects weren't put together, but I'd be curious to know if we are getting efficiencies out of the private sector delivery of those roadways. I know in the past that was kind of the case because they kind of use the different permitting process, but I'm not sure if that's the case anymore. So it'd be good to, if we can gather that information and see if there's an advantage to continuing to pursue aggressively as the county has, to the county's credit. I think it's pursue these public-private partnership projects, or have we come to an equilibrium where they're pretty much similar costs? So that's just a question for future. The other question on the point of the varying estimates, engineers' estimates versus delivery costs, has there been a practice, or and I don't always live in that world, of trying to project the time of expenditure cost, or do we just take the cost estimate at the time and then update it when we're about to go fund the project? Or how do you reconcile the engineer's estimate and then the budgeting process when you go to budget for that improvement?
You want to talk about that, Brian?
Typically, for the capital projects, it's not year of expenditure, it's current. It changes a little bit with the developer projects because you generally know that it's going to continue the production phases. So you get a much closer error, let's say, between the estimate and when the actual construction happens. So typical practice is current value in estimates.
So is there value for improving our projection budgeting process in maybe adding a side note, or this is because the engineer's estimate has to stand on statewide averages? I understand that's a typical process, and it's we have to do that, but maybe to put an aside, we expect this road to get funded 4, 5, 6 years from now. Therefore, we're adding some multiplier to that engineer's estimate just so that we're closing
Sure.
in on that budget?
Sure, you can run that analysis. Again, do we know we're going to be producing those production phases on that schedule, or will a recession bump that, or funding availability have an effect on that? Sure. I mean, it's an exercise that you can do. Kind of gives you a better forecast of the funding that you'll need at different times. So, sure. I know that they continuously look at a 5-year window, perhaps a 10-year window.
Right, and I know that we've had to delay projects in the past due to those misses, right?
Sure, it's extremely rare to have the full funding of a project from study to construction in hand at any time.
Yeah.
Very rare.
So another benefit for the private-public partnerships, right?
Yes.
Public-private partnerships. Last question's on the level service. I know Mr. Chair here asked about the influence of non-vehicular traffic or mobility on the level service. As we go forward with the context classification and changing our look at level service, do we anticipate that we're going to prioritize corridors based on non-vehicular, like deficient pedestrian or safety concerns, prioritize those for improvement over capacity deficiencies? Because right now we track capacity, we look at capacity, all the service is all about capacity and lanes, right? Do we anticipate that this is going to ultimately change that paradigm, or is it just another tracking tool so that we can continue to do specialty projects to address those non-vehicular issues?
Well, I think that one of the reasons why TransMAC was created was for that, to kind of possibly make that shift. But I think we already are doing that with our higher injury network. I mentioned in my last presentation that we're going after $25 million in federal grant money for improvements to that high injury network. So we are moving in that direction, and I think that the commission has an opportunity to help us continue in that direction even more.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
If I could follow up real quick on one of Mohammed's questions about the developer projects. If I can put my, Joe Public hat on here, I can see someone out there saying, well, why aren't these all 100% developer projects? Because it's their projects that they're building that are coming in and causing all this traffic. So why aren't they picking up the tab for 100% of these new projects? Can you explain why that's not happening? Why aren't the developers paying for 100% of the traffic that they are imposing on the residents?
Well, the answer to that is they are. They're responsible for the impacts of their development on the roadway network that they're influencing with those trips. So they're not responsible for the entire project because they're not loading it with 100% of their trip. I mean, the 100% of the traffic that's on there. There's background traffic. There's, like you saw on Boggy Creek Road, lots of people coming in from outside that don't pay a dime to improve our roadways. So they are paying their trips that they put on that roadway and the impacts that they put on there. That's where the prop share comes in. If they're not completely, if they're just impacting it, then they'll pay that and go. Larger developers that have a bigger impact, it may make sense for them to go ahead and do the project, but again, they're funding their proportion of the impact.
I don't think that's going to make you a very popular man with the Joe Public, Brian, with that answer.
Well, if we could control the ins and outs of the county, maybe that's a thought.
Now we're on to something. Ron, back to you.
You're not talking about congestion pricing now, are you?
Yes, and this may be more limited to a POPC area, but I'm working with the traffic department or the police department right now We've identified areas. We have new development that comes in, the developer, they put this beautiful new development, and they do a beautiful cutout and beautiful sidewalks in front of their development. It's within 2 miles of the schools, which means the kids have to either mom or dad drives them or they walk to school. No sidewalks, lack of roadway or sidewalk road for the kids to be able to ride their bikes has been an ongoing problem in the city of Apopka. I can't speak for the county, but for Apopka, it's a real problem. And it's a challenge. I mean, one of our commissioners has said, well, do you realize I saw kids walking along this roadway? And, Commissioner, with all due respect, you approved it. I mean, some of it has to do and lies with the city, what they're doing it. Some of it lies with the developer. But these developers want to put these beautiful developments within 2 miles of a school. I believe they should be accountable for connecting so the kids have a safe means of move. Thank you.
Zach.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely agree with that. And I would say to the John Q. public that's upset with Brian about, hey, who's paying for all these roads and the developers should pay for them. A gas tax would do a great job of paying for them, and that would be paid in large part by people who don't live here. But, that's just one of many things that we have to take into account when figuring our transportation issues. One thing specifically that did come to mind in all this is thinking about the impact that the trees have for when we're talking about alternative modes of transportation and how motivated are you going to be to walk or bike or skateboard or scooter down this sidewalk when it's just 20 degrees hotter than the ambient air temperature because it's unshaded. I would imagine when you're budgeting this stuff, trees are not in the budget. That it's like
No, landscaping is, and that would include trees too. Mm-hmm.
But it's not going to, it's trees that are intended to grow over time and provide
Right.
shade later.
Mm-hmm.
Are you aware of, or if we said it was a priority, could there be opportunities to say, hey, we want to seek out funding for creating better natural tree canopy on, say, the Valencia College Road that's being underutilized right now, and what could we do? Well, if we added trees, it would make it more walkable, probably, right? And that's me going off of long memories ago of what it might have looked like there. Maybe there is natural canopy now, but just as an example. So, I guess to pull back to the more general question, when we're coming to these situations and we're saying, okay, we want to be able to prioritize, we want the kids to be able to walk to school, right? What would we have to do in order to begin to figure around that stuff so that in the planning stage we could be able to say, hey, you know what, we got to prioritize some kind of canopy here. And then if it's not going to be natural shade from trees, then how do we engineer and design and start thinking about what does that look like? Because the temperature's only getting hotter outside. It's only getting harder and harder to use these alternative modes of transportation.
So from a 30,000-foot perspective, obviously, changes in land development code would help that, right? So that'd be the first. Second would be when, and this is a much more controllable level for TransMAC, when you are looking at these projects that want to be budgeted, that we are asking for budget for, these are the kinds of questions that you could be asking. You could be asking, what are we doing for the pedestrians? Are we providing, any type of vegetation for them? Just understand that we do have certain restrictions. So from my understanding, most trees take up about 10 feet, okay? So we're only allowed, if we have to get additional right-of-way, if we have to pay for additional right-of-way, we can only get the amount of right-of-way that we need for the improvements. An extra 10 feet of trees isn't necessarily part of that. It has to be for the actual facility. So those are the kinds of things you have to think about. But from your example, when we have a roadway that maybe is underperforming from a volume perspective, just like we can add a bike lane, maybe there's room for trees as well.
Thank you. And so just to clarify, what I'm hearing there is that when we're designing and planning and thinking about this stuff, the only thing that's viewed as important is the cars and moving the cars. And it's really not statistically, categorically viewed as important to say, we need to make the road or the pathway adequately shaded so that people can use it without a car. That just doesn't even come into consideration.
No, I wouldn't say that. I think that, with the onset of, larger sidewalks and shared use paths, I think, and buffered bike lanes, I think we are taking other modes into consideration.
Sorry, not to say that
Oh.
those modes aren't being taken into
Yeah.
consideration, because I know they are, right? But that the shade factor.
Yeah, I
As-
think,
Like, and how that impacts the capacity to use them, and
Mm-hmm.
if they're unshaded, they're ostensibly unusable for like 60% of the year here.
right, so I am not an expert on this, but my understanding is there's certain state laws that restrict us from being able to take additional right-of-way for trees.
Right.
So we
Okay.
can take it for sidewalks, we can take it for bike lanes, we can take it for roads, but, the shading perspective, but also, there may be some innovative things that we can look at. I think in the city of Miami, they have, they're actually aluminum structures, but they're structures that are used on certain shared use paths that help with the sun. So the other problem with trees too is you gotta think about maintenance, right? As they start
Sure.
growing, they start, the sidewalk panels start coming up, that's additional maintenance. But maybe there's something innovative that we can do instead to kind of help with that.
Trees are
situation.
great, right? But the ultimate thing here is that we're looking at a use case of what needs to be designed is a facility that's walkable. And then if the facility doesn't have shade accommodations, it becomes drastically less walkable. And from what I'm hearing, the legislation doesn't really accommodate for that. It's like if we're acquiring right of way, we're acquiring it for cars, not for shaded pathways for walking. And then, yeah, whatever way that we're going to get those shaded pathways, I wouldn't be so concerned. It's great to have it with trees. That's the ideal. But ultimately, what we need is walkable. Yeah, thank you.
As we so commonly find out, all roads lead back to Tallahassee. Patrick.
I just wanted to follow up on the chairman's point. Just to confirm, the formula that's paid by the developer is set by the state, correct?
I believe that's true. I'm not sure about that.
It is a function of the traffic generation that development generates. And, a certain use has a certain number of trips assigned to it, puts it on the road. There's a value of the impact fee credits that we set, and you back that into the cost of the roadway. It produces so many credits. The developer's only responsible for a portion of those that funding. So it's not so much the state. It's a
But
function.
that assignment, though, is created by the state. It's not at the county level, right? They set those requirements?
I'm not sure how that's correlated. I would say no.
No? Okay.
Member Abdallah, can you help me out?
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, no, the state does regulate
Phone
certain
friend.
parts of this, but most of these calculations are based on estimates of capacity need generated or travel need generated by that developer versus the capacity available for them to use. So where the state steps in, basically the state restriction is that a local jurisdiction could not double charge a developer for the same need. So if a developer requires X number of trips of capacity, as Pistorius was mentioning, and they've paid for that in their impact fees, the county can come in and say, well, on top of that, we need you to also do these things, right? That's
I
why.
guess my point is, like, though, from the level of the calculations, X costs, there's 500 trips hypothetically.
Mm-hmm.
The cost for that trip and then the impact fee is designed at the state level, though. It's not designed at the county level that says this
Actually,
is the impact
I
that it's
see
going to
what you're-
drive.
That's driven by, well, first, professional standards and industry standards, and also there's, the impact fee itself is really, there's quite a bit of case law that establishes how you can determine the impact fee and the nexus between So it's not just a state issue, it's pretty much a standard of the practice.
Okay, but it's not the county
It's not the
dictating.
county, but
Yeah,
it's also not
yeah,
the state.
Gotcha,
It's-
okay, thank you.
That's why it was a little difficult.
Yeah.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Jose, you're up.
Yeah, Brian, if Vision 2050, which was supposed to be the one to be used right now, if SB 180 doesn't get amended, or if the county loses on the lawsuit, or it gets appealed, takes 2 or 3 years, if we go back to comprehensive 2030, do any of these numbers change at all, or everything stays the same status quo?
For us, it's pretty status quo.
There we go. Thank you.
Sorry, go ahead.
In reference to your question, the city of Apopka has development fees, and they can set those. But the system is, in my opinion, development-oriented. It does come from Tallahassee. You can only make an increase in those fees, only in certain percentages, and only once every 4 years. And, but the city does have, the city of Apopka does have, and unfortunately, the city of Apopka hasn't done it since 2016, with their increases every year. So the development fees for Apopka are not covering what the Apopka's needs are, as an example.
No, there certainly are restrictions from the state on certain items, so yeah, you're absolutely right there. But thanks for the time. I just wanted to make a commentary on the walkability of roads and the in our practice, it's been demonstrated over and again that the highest determinant for the walkability of a roadway, in addition to providing obviously sidewalks and facilities, is the land use. Right? It starts with the land use, it ends with the land use. Trees and amenities, and those are amenitizing a walkable road, but not making the road walkable. Right? It's that view shed, it's the activity that's occurring on the edge of the road. That's what makes a road walkable. So just as we think about these things, there's a tie between land use and roadways, and we can't think of them separately. Right.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, Lauren, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so now we're going to move on to our presentation on traffic calming and safety projects. So we're going to hear about our traffic calming program from our Public Works Department. We got a newcomer to our he's like, I'm never coming back. Hopefully they don't call me again.
No worries at all. We go to a lot of night meetings for traffic calming, and so it's a pretty common thing that we talk about. Good afternoon. My name is Gerald Marks. I work in the Traffic Engineering Division, and partly one of my main focus is traffic calming. So when I first started this position about 7 years ago, I didn't think it was involved, but the more the county grows, the more we get involved, and I think a lot of things fall into traffic calming. So we're here to talk about, well, I'm just going to show you a little bit of some of the examples that we do for traffic calming, what it involves, what it is, and how we go through the process of evaluating some of the things that we install for traffic calming. So what is traffic calming? Traffic calming uses physical design and other measures to improve safety for motorists, pedestrians, and cyclists, and it has become a tool to alert motorists of unsafe driving behaviors within neighborhoods and encourage drivers to perform or behave a little bit better. What we use is the 4E approach, and it takes into account everything, starting with us, the traffic engineering. We look at the engineering value of it, we look at education, enforcement, which is a huge part of it, and emergency response. This is what people don't think about a lot. Anything that we put in the road that delays vehicles also delays emergency response. And so it was very interesting that we had a fire marshal that was here previous. How he mentioned it is that there's controllables and uncontrollables. So the things that they can control are the time it takes to receive the call, the time it takes for the fire personnel to leave the building and get into the truck and leave. They can't control the traffic, right? So when you're on the road, they can't control the traffic and how long it's going to take to get to the destination. But for every one of the devices that we put in the road, there's a certain delay that's associated with that. And so at the time, we were using an old-style speed hump, and they calculated that delay for 30 seconds per device. And so when you start adding those 30 seconds up per device, 5 of them, you get to a minute plus, and so forth. And we think that's ridiculous, 30 seconds, but you think about how large the truck is. It carries water sometimes. The axles, so that truck can't navigate a speed hump like a car can. And so at 30 seconds per device, that delay time gets stretched and stretched. And the graphic that he provided was, imagine that you have a child or grandchild that was in a pool and was drowning and it needed emergency service right then. So now we're talking about the safety of speeding vehicles versus the safety of emergency response. Or we have grandparents or elderly that need emergency response. And so we always have to balance that when we look at placement of speed humps and how many we put and where we put. We've kind of changed our design a little bit, and so we've used speed cushions, and we've used that design to accommodate the wheelbase of a fire truck. There's still delay, but not as much delay, and so that was kind of an interesting point. And then the other point that he gave is our emergency response services here are graded statewide by their response times. And so right now, Orange County has an A as far as response times, meaning that they can respond within a certain amount of time that's acceptable as at a level A. When the response time starts affecting and that rating is dropped from an A to a B, that could affect insurance premiums, because now it takes longer for emergency rescue vehicle or a fire vehicle to reach that destination. And now it's going to cost you a little bit more because the risk is greater. So there's a lot of things that are involved in traffic calming rather than just putting a device in the road trying to slow vehicles down. So we have to take all that into account. Traffic calming for pedestrians and crossing strategies. And so these are some of the mainly used items that we use. I mean, they're tiny, but we're going to go into each one of them separately. And so roundabouts, speed cushions, rumble strips, high visibility crosswalks, median islands. Radar feedback signs are very effective, rectangular flashing beacons, intersection lighting, and then pavement markings. So the speed cushions, the picture at the very top, these are the ones that were redesigned. And so we actually worked with the fire marshal and the fire department for Orange County. We got the actual wheelbases of the truck that they use and designed those based on those trucks. And so the section in the middle is 6 feet wide, and then the gaps are 18 inches. And so the front wheels can pass over without any friction at all, but the rear wheels with the dualies in the back, they do have to go over, and so that's where some of the delay comes in. But it's not the 30-second delay that we were having before, so it cuts down tremendously on delay for those. And so as we resurface our roads and because we had the old style that we were using, so as we resurface our roads, we're going back with this design in lieu of the old design. The median islands and chicanes. It reduces the street width and it gives a calming effect as cars are visually going down the street. And so when they see the street, they see the trees, they see the grass, it's a little bit more friction, so cars tend to slow down a little bit more. And then like if you have chicanes with those, which are kind of these objects or even striping along the side of the road, which narrows it down even further, cars feel like, or vehicles traveling feel like the road is narrow, and so the tendency is to slow down more. Speed feedback signs, we see these quite a bit now more, but what it is, it's a friendly reminder that drivers, hey, the posted speed limit is 25 and your speed is 33. And so there's no enforcement behind it, but it's making drivers aware that, hey, there are speed limits, and it flashes at you, so you could miss it, but that's if you want to miss it. But most of the time, if you're driving down the street, you see the flashing lights and get your attention. Roundabouts are very effective. They reduce vehicular traffic flows. One thing is they reduce conflict points. And so there's not so many left turns. Everything is a right turn. And so you reduce the conflict points and it slows the vehicles down as they're approaching, especially if designed properly with the deflection coming into the roundabout. You have improved vehicle traffic flows, and it's safe for all users. And it's one of the countermeasures proven for And FHWA recommends the use of the roundabout. High visibility crosswalks and speed tables. Well, you see the green painted sign.
Better get that out of the presentation.
That was something that we used in the past, and the visibility helps, but we're at a different stage right now, and so the high visibility crosswalks with the paintings, we probably won't use, but there are other things within the crosswalks that can be utilized. There are the RPMs, the reflected pavement markers that you can put inside of those that are actuated with the rapid flashing beacons, and so those light up as you approach the crosswalk. So they're safe for users when crossing roadway. They stand out a little bit more, and so. But there's also pavement markings that we can put on the road that lets the driver know that the posted speed limit, what it is, and it's based upon the speed of the road. Those are another friendly reminder to drivers that there is a speed limit within this community. I just mentioned the rectangular rapid flashing beacons, the RRFBs. And so those are actuated buttons. As you approach the sidewalk, push the button, you see the flashing lights alternating yellow to alert the driver that there is a pedestrian entering into the crosswalk. And so important for pedestrians as they use those, it's important for the pedestrian to make eye contact with the driver, not to just assume that the driver is going to stop because the lights are actuated and they're flashing, but actually make eye contact with the driver, make sure that that driver is paying attention and doesn't have a cell phone, or not that there's two lanes there and you can see the driver on the outside but not the inside lane. So, but those are very effective in alerting traffic or slowing down vehicles as approaching crosswalks. Lighting intersection, that can improve the visibility of the pedestrian as they cross the streets and the pedestrians as they're on facilities, bike lanes, sidewalks. It improves non-motorized connectivity for, the network itself. And it improves for when people are entering into the crosswalk. So more visible, because in the dark lit areas, you can't really see, and so once you light that intersection up, it makes it easy for the pedestrian to cross. Rumble strips. So those are effective, but in the right areas, because we don't want to put rumble strips in a housing development where every time cars transverse over the rumble strips, they make the loud noise, and especially if they're speeding, and you put rumble strips in a highly populated neighborhood, you're going to hear those. And so we try to move those into areas where maybe they're approaching a school or before you get to the neighborhood, or to slow down to alert the driver that there's changes in the road ahead, whether it's a stop sign, whether it's a school zone you're approaching, and so forth. And the traffic calming request, how we go about doing traffic calming. That black square is actually a video that we have on 311 that basically shows how 311 is operated, but it's not, I don't have there it is. It doesn't have volume to it, but our 311 department did an awesome job on creating this video and basically how you can make these requests. And so we get so many requests, and it's not that they're being ignored, but like we just, as they come in, we come in from 311, they come in from emails, they come from the commissioner's office, they come in from straight phone calls. But the easiest way to make these requests is use the 311, because that system, basically there's an operator that takes the call, or that takes from the app, that'll take the report from the app, and it'll actually create a ticket. And so that ticket, it gives you a tracking number. And so if you ever want to call and find out what the status of your request is, you can use that tracking number, and then it's easy for us to track on internally. But the process is contact 311. Traffic engineering team will reach out to you, will initiate a study for the road, and so there's criteria that we use. And we change it based upon the location sometimes, because if it's around a school, we may not meet the threshold for volume, but there are schools, there's pedestrians there, and so we may make an exception based upon that. There's a ballot process, and so once we determine that the road meets or warrants additional traffic calming, we send out ballots to the homeowners. We need a 67% agreement from the return ballots, or 66%. And once that's approved, then our project team will start scheduling the installation of traffic calming. All right, so that's the traffic calming. And so,
Can we pause on that one, Gerald, and take some questions before we move with the next one?
absolutely.
Just on that, did not know about that traffic calming request and that process you go through. That's very interesting. Why is there a majority vote among property owners so they can decide whether traffic calming is implemented on their road?
It would be, because we had a lot of requests, and so like if I'm visiting your neighborhood and I say, I think you need traffic calming on your road, but I don't live there, I'm just visiting you. So it's basically for the homeowners that live there that are directly impacted. And so since those are homeowners that are paying the taxes for that house, they make the decision on their local roads and what's going in. So
Very interesting,
Yeah.
because a lot of these things are designed to reduce speed.
correct.
Right, and in my experience, attending many a public meeting on transportation projects, is that people love safety until it comes at the expense of their own convenience.
Correct.
So putting it up to a majority vote of homeowners as to whether they should be slowed down, even on their own roadways, I just think that's an interesting process.
Yeah.
So, okay, so a question about, you went over a number of potential improvements there. What is your favorite from like a bang for the buck, makes roads safer? Like, do you have a favorite improvement?
We have one that's not on there, but we just had an installation of one. It's on Powers Drive at Washington Park. It's a raised intersection. It was a little bit pricey, but it's a very effective because on that stretch of Powers, the speed limit was initially 35. We lowered it to 30. As we were out there, and it's right in front of a park, I think, was it Washington Park? I think that's the name of that. So as we were out there doing measurements, cars are passing other cars while people are trying to cross the road. And so we implemented the rectangular flashing beacons, and we installed a raised intersection. And so that intersection tremendously slows cars down in that area. And so a little bit beyond that, we had to add speed tables, but that was pretty effective. It all depends on kind of what the area is experiencing, because we used small mini roundabouts, mini traffic circles. I like those for the area that we put those in because it wasn't a vertical deflection that the cars had to go over, but vehicles had to navigate through that, and so it cut down the number of box trucks cutting through there because it's not that they can't navigate it, but it's a little bit more difficult for them to navigate, and so it was more effective. So depending on the situation, I like the speed cushions. I mean, they're the catch-all, but sometimes people get used to those and speed through those still. So enforcement would be my number one thing, but since we understand that, the sheriff's office has a huge county to cover, and so they can't be everywhere at all times, these are effective measures to help slow down some of the vehicles.
Now, I would imagine a lot of these are only used on local roads because you're not going to install certain things at higher speed roadways, right? So
Yeah.
even collectors,
Correct.
40, 45 miles an hour. I don't even know if we have any county-run arterials or if those are all state roads. But what are some of the things that you would look at for a higher speed facility to try to slow down traffic on those?
So it's interesting that you mentioned that because right now we're revamping kind of how we do traffic calming, and it was only on residential roads. But now the demand from the county, we're starting to see these collector roads and arterial roads that they want some kind of speed management. And so we look at the FDOT speed management guide and kind of getting some tools from there. But there are a couple of things like we look at the pedestrians if they're crossing, maybe a mid-block crosswalking. But we just have to make sure that it's in the right location where those are. Narrowing the lane sometimes, like when we do a resurfacing project. Lauren's heading up a group that when we look at resurfacing, we look at the lane configuration to see, hey, right now these are 12-foot wide lanes. Maybe we can go down to 10-foot wide lanes, if the fire department or emergency rescue vehicles doesn't have an issue. Add a bike lane or add some striping on the edge to narrow the lanes to make the corridor a little bit narrower. And like you saw in there, on Pine Hills, introducing on the Pine Hills Bicycle and Safety Pedestrian Study, introducing access management where there's a median in the middle, narrowing the lanes, maybe some trees, plantings, and things like that. And so it gives the calming effect, so slows down vehicles.
Okay, great, thank you.
Absolutely.
Zach?
Thanks for the great presentation.
Yeah.
I've become a big fan of traffic calming in the last 2 years because I started reading about tactical urbanism and the ways that it can change and affect the environment.
Yes.
And one thing that I'm not saying this from a critical perspective because I understand that the county's in a complicated position in terms of what it can implement. But one thing that I didn't hear that was mentioned is the kind of more soft implementations like putting a food truck or a parklet, and the way that people gathered on a street can really affect the way that people drive and can reduce speeds. And when people see the road as just a transport facility for cars, they go fast. When they see it as, wait, there's life taking place on the side here, we slow down. Is that type of placemaking something that's being considered in the updated traffic calming implementations, or is that too far out of the realms of what can be implemented in a systematized way?
We haven't looked at it, but that's not to say that we can't. So the possibility, we hired a consultant to look at it and look at the FDM, look at the speech management for FHWA. So we're opening the book. So anything that we could possibly do that could be effective here within the county, we're going to vet it out. And so as part of that, we'll have a stakeholders meeting where we'll invite Metro Plan, all of the stakeholders that use the road and would be affected by it, and say, hey, what are your thoughts on some of the things that we're trying to implement?
Yeah,
Just
if that's certainly I would love to use my position on this commission to weigh in that regard and say I would hope that the county will look into those kind of more soft people-based options, because I think that can fill a lot of the gaps that we're finding where, a system and a process and a facility itself can't do it when we're relying on drivers who are trapped in their phones, which goes back to another thing with the 311 app. That feels like a great place for us to start. Could we maybe get some information from you, because we could be reaching out to those citizens that are already that engaged, that they've gone through all this trouble to say, hey, we need traffic calming. If we're reaching out to those citizens and saying, tell us about what else is going on in your neighborhood and in your area, that could be a great place for us to start. And just to go back to it one more time, I love that you said that, the most important thing is probably enforcement to have the most direct impact. And I'm going to say it again, the sooner that we create some kind of a neighborhood safety commission and some kind of a regulation that's outside of, traffic citations, and we're able to say, hey, you know what, you were in your car and you made our community unsafe and now you have to pay a fine. I think that is something that we really need to look at in a serious way, and how that affects traffic and transportation here. Because if we had people out in the streets in these, especially in the high injury networks, in these problem intersections, that's a direct impact on just getting people to behave properly in the car, which is the one thing that Public Works can't affect.
Right, yeah, the driver behavior is a huge thing. And so a lot of the things that were offered in that presentation were friendly reminders, physical barriers, some of those, but nothing hurts like a ticket, right, or a violation. So if you have to pay that violation and, it comes out of, the money that you were spending for something else, and then you have points on your license or whatever, that's a huge reminder.
Agreed. And when that money's going back into the community to handle things to make the community enriched, I think it's hard for people to point a finger and say that, well, this isn't fair or it shouldn't be like this, right?
Right.
And I think we also there's even a step before that where, it's not about shaming other people, but it's about that, we should feel shame when we don't live up to our responsibilities to engage in society, right? We're living by a social contract. And when we break the contract just for our own convenience, we should feel shame for that. And when we routinely break that contract just to look at a phone while we drive, knowing that it could kill someone, it could change someone's life forever in a negative way, we should feel ashamed of that. And there's all kinds of ways that we can lean into that without, I get that it's uncomfy to talk about, but it doesn't have to turn anyone into a villain or a monster or a pariah. It can just be that the same way that people would feel shame if they were out in public and slapped someone in the face,
Right.
should feel the same kind of shame using your car to create that same level of unsafety. But thank you.
Rod?
Enforcement, as you indicated, is the key, and there can't be a cop in every corner. But I can tell you what we did in our development a few years ago. We contacted the Popka Police Department and said, we've got speed issues on this road and this road. They used my front yard and another location to set up speed monitor. And what people don't realize, the speed monitor only shows you the speed as you're coming at it. It also measures the vehicles coming the other way that most people don't know. But what the police use that for is to identify when the speeding's occurring. Then they park on the streets, they issue tickets. And the bad news for my 1320 development was 97% of the tickets
Residents.
were for residents. I didn't get one, but they're 97% from our own residents, because the theory was, oh, these people driving through here in these utility vehicles and all this. No, it was our residents.
Yep.
But it's something to reach out to. I think every department has it. They have restrictions sometimes on whether they can put it on your property or not. It wasn't a restriction for me. They put it in my median, which is really the city's anyway. But it's something to look at if it's a concern in your development.
Interestingly enough, Lauren had mentioned it before about some of the apps that we have. They're great, but the moment that somebody tags that there is an officer for enforcement there, it goes on that app, and the app tells you policeman enforcement ahead. And so it's very effective until somebody pings that app and lets them know that there's enforcement ahead. And so they slow down for just that moment, and after they get past, they speed up again. So yeah, we hear that a lot from our sheriff's department. And so what we do is when we do a speed study, we look at the prime times of the day that, like you just said, the higher times that people are speeding, and we'll turn that into the sheriff's and say, hey, can we get enforcement around this time? Because we've noticed speeding that occurs mostly around this time. Because like you said, they can't be everywhere at all times. And so we want to try to pinpoint some of the times that, it would be most effective for them to be there. And that's what he was telling me. He's like, hey, we can sit out there, but the minute somebody puts it on the app, whether it's Waze or whether it's Google, that, enforcement is here, they slow down just for that moment, and then they're back at it again. So, yeah.
Good thing they didn't poll the surrounding homeowners whether they wanted that speed enforcement, Rod. Patrick?
Something for Brian. They're 70 miles an hour in front of my house.
Oh, wow.
I just want to say excellent presentation, and to the point of the speed cushions and the vote, they actually just installed them, I want to say a year ago in my community. And,
oh, good.
And I think it was almost unanimous, support for it, and they work tremendously. And I appreciate the detail of why they're designed that way. So thank you for that. And I was like, wow, that's actually a wonderful innovation. I was like,
yeah.
I just could not figure out why they were designed that way. So thank you.
Yeah. They're less effective for motorcycles. I think on one of the roads we were getting one of the residents complaining that motorcycles are speeding through them. But that's kind of one of those things that we gotta see what else we can do to kind of curb some of the speeding there. Like you said, it would be good if people felt bad if they were speeding and what they were doing could possibly cost somebody their life, but got to get to that point.
Mohammed?
Thank you. Great presentation. Thanks for all the information. So I think you mentioned that the fire chief and basically EMS and the life services are, life safety are probably the biggest impediment to going nuclear on traffic calming, right? So you mentioned speed tables, you mentioned elevated crosswalks and so on. Where's the fire chief on those? Are those also?
So prior to that, we were getting not exception, but we had to get approval for every device that we put in. So when we install speed tables and raised crosswalks, we make sure that we coordinate with the fire marshal to make sure that there's going to be a delay, but make sure that it's not directly in one of their travel routes. There is a community that they've been asking for them, but even with the speed cushions, the fire marshal's really not comfortable putting there because it's a direct route for the EMS. So when they leave the fire station, they would have to traverse over them going and coming. And so We're looking for some other things to do within that neighborhood, but yes, we consult with our fire marshal when we install something like the raised speed tape or raised intersection and things like that, just to make sure that it's not a huge impediment to where they are. And we also look at where we are as far as the county. So we'll have a map, open up the GIS, and make sure that there's no fire station that's directly down the road from one of the devices that we put in.
Okay, so they're still seeing them similarly to speed humps, but because they don't occur so regularly, it's
Right.
less of an issue.
And then for the larger vehicles, they're longer, and so the wheelbase doesn't get affected as much. So there's not as much of a delay as with the speed cushions and the speed humps, which are 12 feet wide. These are 22 feet wide, and so it's more of a gentle transition rather than an abrupt.
Got it. Okay, and have you all experimented with the one-lane chicanes where essentially you're taking two-way traffic and forcing them to go one at a time through a...
There is one installation that we have. It's off of Michigan, I believe. It's in one of the neighborhoods in Michigan, and it doesn't have as much volume, but it's effective because it's close to a stop sign, and so the cars have to take turns, and so they both can't operate at the same time. So it's off of Michigan, and I forget the location, but we've done one like that. So
Okay. No road rage issues, no
not
no
that I
fist
know
fights.
of.
Okay. Okay. I'd be interested if you have data on that, because
Yeah.
that seems like it's a very effective tool, but it could cause other issues.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I know Gerald has a second part to his presentation.
Not a question, but I did want to make sure to point out that there's something really valuable taking place here, which is, traffic calming has this explicit task of making vehicles move more slowly to create more safety, but then the consideration of also the emergency response vehicles have to use these roads, so we also have to make sure that the emergency response vehicles can get through. I just want to make sure that at some point we can come back to this, because there's certainly a lot of good, useful design thinking to be extracted here, where the way of looking at the problem requires really stepping back and figuring out how to incorporate things that might not have been anticipated in the beginning.
Yeah, and I did my best not to touch that, but I would be curious as to whether the fire department and emergency response spends more of their time responding to car crashes caused by unsafe streets or other things they could be responding to, but that's a conversation for another day. Okay, Gerald, you got a second part about schools and speed cameras. Let's talk about it.
So this is a little bit of traffic calming. This is more of driver behavior modification, I would say. And so it's the Orange County School Speed Zone Detection Camera Program. That's a mouthful. So this is a presentation that we gave to the Board of County Commissioners to approve an ordinance back on August 26th. And so we talked about the background, school safety studies that we've conducted for each of the schools, the ordinance that has to be part of moving forward, next steps, and there's a memorandum of understanding with the Sheriff's Office for the enforcement and management side, and action requested of the board. A little bit of the background. So the framework of how the program works is a county or municipality must consider traffic data to have these cameras warranted within a school zone. They also must determine that school zone is a heightened safety risk. And so that's up to the municipality to decide what a heightened safety risk is. And the enforcement times are 30 minutes before school, all the way up to 30 minutes after school. And so, and everything in between, but at different speed limits. $100 fine for speed limits 10 miles over the posted school zone with posted speed limit within the school zone, and there must be a 30-day public awareness campaign. So on December 24th, we went to the board and we presented how the program worked. We presented how it got started in July of 2023, and it was approved. And so the board asked us to look at two things. Look at 12 schools, 2 per commission district for year one, and development of an ordinance that allows us to move forward with this program. And it's important to say the 12 schools because we have so many schools within Orange County, over 300 schools, plus or minus. But the enforcement part, and so if we put all schools at one time, we would have to hire so many officers just to keep up with the violations because some of the background that we've seen on some of these cameras, there's so many violations within that first 6 months that the sheriff's office wouldn't be able to keep up. And so there was a concern that even if we hired enough deputies, we want to make sure that we have enough deputies to process the violations. And so we started out with 2 schools per commission district. We worked with the commissioners to choose those schools. We did speed studies on all those schools. And so some of the results are, backing up a little bit, July 1st of 2023, that's when it was enacted in Tallahassee, Florida statute. And so basically it says that a county or municipality can enact this program to install the cameras within the school zones, but it must consider the traffic data and evidence supporting that there is dangerous driving and that each school zone that's selected must constitute a heightened safety risk that warrants additional enforcement. Let's get to the school study. So phase one, what we did is we coordinated with each of the district commissioners, the Orange County Public Schools, the sheriff's office on school site selection. So we actually talked to OCPS and say, hey, could you give us a list of the schools that you have the most speeding complaints with? And so once we got that list, we kind of cross-referenced that list from the sheriff's office where they got some of the most complaints from. And then we took that list of each of the commissioners and say, hey, these are the schools in your district that we're getting the most complaints from. These are our recommendations on where we want to move forward with the first 12. And so with those 12 schools, we conducted schools studies in April while the schools were still in session. Basically to determine if it met the criteria that's in the Florida statute that says it must meet a heightened safety risk. So each of the school zones, part of the Florida statute reads that each of the school zones are assigned with flashers, and it must indicate that there is speeding during the school zone and during arrival and dismissal periods. So for year one of the program, after speaking with the district commissioners, these are the schools that were chosen. So for District 1, Dr. Phillips and Hunters Creek. District 2, you have Rock Springs and Meadowbrook. District 3, we have 3 Points Elementary and Salaride Elementary. District 4, Discovery Middle and South Creek Middle. District 5, Wedgefield K-8 and Cheney Elementary. And District 6, Oak Hill Elementary and Palmetto Elementary. So the speed data was captured on a Tuesday and Thursday in April while school was still in session. And how it was captured is we looked at speed starting from 0 to 10 miles an hour and then 5-mile increments over that. And then the data was aggregated to look at right before arrival and right after dismissal. And so as part of the Florida statute that, each school must be signed with the flashing beacons, and we also took note of any kind of traffic calming devices there were, or there were warning signs. And so that we took an inventory of everything for each of the schools. And so if you see the yellow highlighted, it's real small here, but we'll go to one of the examples. But if you see the yellow highlighted areas, those are the times of enforcement. And so we'll get to some of the numbers. So if you look at here, all the yellow, what you see is cars that are doing 0 to 10 miles an hour. And so the red is 10 plus miles an hour. Looking at a couple of these, if you look at South Creek Middle School, about 25% of the cars are going 10 miles over the speed limit. But then you have another 30% that are doing 10 plus miles over the speed limit. And so some of these numbers are really, really alarming. And even if you only see a red, small little bit of red, that red represents about 100 or more cars. So we have a lot of misbehaving or bad driver behavior within the school zones, which is really alarming. Kind of when you break that down, over a 2-day collection period, nearly all schools experience a total of 400 vehicles speeding during arrival and dismissal periods. When you break it down, 100 speeding vehicles in each school zone, each hour of arrival and dismissal on a single day. And all schools experience more than 20% of traffic speeding and exceeding the 20-mile survivability rate is what we call. Anything that's 20 and below, you have a better chance of survival, but the higher you go up, especially for our most vulnerable children in these school zones, anything over 25 and 30, the higher you get, the survivability rate starts decreasing. And some schools saw as much as 70% of vehicles speeding through the school zone. So naturally, we looked at these results that met the requirement that each of these schools had a heightened safety risk. So the ordinance, I'll kind of brush through this because part of the Florida statute, certain things had to be in the ordinance. So section 3516 of the ordinance, basically it establishes a program, and the purpose of the program is to enhance safety in school zones, provide additional enforcement, and then you could do it using the cameras, basically. And the county has chosen to move forward with the program. It'll support law enforcement. Basically, it's a force multiplier. The program administration, so how it works is the Orange County Sheriff's is going to do the enforcement, but we're going to manage the contract. Orange County will contract with a vendor. Basically, RFP will go out, and we'll select a vendor based upon the RFP and what's put in the RFP. School zones, so for the first year, there's 12 schools, but there are 13 school zones. One of the schools on there had 2 school zones, which both constituted a heightened safety risk. Additional detection systems may be approved, and so if we want to add more schools later on, we'll have to go back to the board, but we felt that the 12 in the first year would be good, and so knowing that we're going to have 2 more commission districts, we're going to have 16 next year. Fines are $100 if cars are going or vehicles are traveling 10 plus miles an hour over the speed limit. 30 minutes before school and 30 minutes after is when it's enforced. Every year there must be an annual report that has to be given at the Board of County Commissioners to let them know the stats that we had for the year. And it was adopted on August 26th of 2025, and then we're going to look to start this program the fall of 2026. So the beginning of next school year is our target to begin the program. Next steps, we're going to have some community engagement and education, part of the 4 E's. Let the community know that this is coming. Let them know what it's about. It's about safety. It's not about money grab, but it's a safety issue. In year 2, we're going to look at the additional 16 schools that we're going to implement for the program. And what year 1 will do is give us a good idea of the staffing resources that we need for the sheriff's office, because we already understand that this program is going to highlight some of the speeding, and then the violations coming in through some of those schools are tremendous, and so that puts a huge strain on our sheriff's office. So those are the same traffic infraction enforcement officers that manage the red light camera as well. So they'll definitely need additional resources for this program. Timeline, I went to the board for the ordinance approval in August. We'll have the contract out for solicitation in October. Camera installation will go early spring to the summer of 2026. Public awareness campaign begins at the beginning of the school year, and the cameras go live for enforcement in September of 26. And then the spring of 27, we'll start looking at phase 2 and collecting data for phase 2. MOU, or a memorandum of understanding. So with the sheriff's office, we had to split out the responsibility and the roles of each entity. And so the sheriff's offices, they're going to do the enforcement. We're going to manage the program. The county is going to fund all of the traffic infraction enforcement officers, including salaries, training, benefits, and equipment that they need. The sheriff's office will be responsible for the training of the officers to make sure they're in compliance with Florida statute and state laws. And then looking at where we are for this year, or year one of implementation, like I said, that'll help us budget better for the next year. So we're going to start out with 3 additional officers. That might increase, that might decrease for the next year, or it might stay the same, depending on what the violations look like. And if the program does exactly what we've seen the national statistics does, drop anywhere from 40 to 85% within 6 months, we may not need additional officers.
Can you say that again, Jared, on that statistic?
So anywhere the success that we've seen for programs are anywhere, the minimum that we've encountered is 45% reduction all the way up to 85% reduction. In speeding.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and I would assume then a corresponding reduction in like crashes of all kind or serious crashes?
Serious crashes.
Also fair to say?
Yes.
Okay, because I mean, I know the number one complaint I hear about from people about these kind of programs is that they're money grabs, right? And you kind of alluded to that. But what you're saying here is the data shows us that they are clearly making our streets safer around our schools.
Yes.
Right?
So yeah, so I read so many statistics and data about this, and that 29% of a lot of the fatal crashes are because of speeding, right? And so if we can reduce some of the fatal crashes, if we can reduce the speeding, we can reduce some of the fatal crashes. One of the byproducts that San Diego, I called one of the San Diego Police Department that's using this program, and what they said that this program had multiple different layers. And so once they installed the program and saw that it was working successfully, a lot of the people there, the residents, were walking or were driving their kids to school, and because they didn't feel safe with the vehicles driving as fast as they were. About a year after this program was implemented, the speed slowed down so much that people felt more comfortable walking their kids to school and riding bikes and letting their kids ride bikes. And so there was a byproduct of having the cameras there. And so
messing up that level of service projection.
Yeah, and it's freed up the level of service. And so, yes. So these cameras have.
And so from what you're describing, these programs have been implemented in other places. And
Yes.
The success has been documented. How far behind are we on getting to this? Is this like 5 years ago, San Diego started this, 10 years ago? Like where do we sit in the national spectrum of municipalities reaching for these solutions?
I'm not really sure. We just started ours. We just approved it in January of 23. I know Georgia's been using it for the past 5 years. We've called all around the country and got their success. Maryland, District of Columbia, right outside of the District of Columbia, Maryland, Georgia. And the interesting thing that we got from Georgia, the police department in Georgia, is they said, if you think this is a money grab, put us out of business and stop speeding through school zones. I thought that was a very effective statement. But yeah, it was Gwinnett County, Georgia, and they saw the 85% reduction. And they said 6 months after the cameras were installed. So other states have been using this technology for a while. I think it's gone up to the legislature a couple of times and it's been shot down, but this in 2023 it passed.
Not to put too much pressure on you, but if it's possible, I would love to see like even just like a high level list of the places that you reached out to.
Yeah.
So that we could start reaching out to them to learn more about like, okay, in addition to this, what else have you done? Or after you implemented this, what are other steps that you've taken? Because again, not like, I love the level of quality work that our county delivers. I don't think that we're falling short in any way, right? I think that things make their way and innovations make their way, and that's not to blame on anyone, but just to know that there's things out there that we haven't been trying, that other places have tried them and implemented them. So much of the complication comes in just, hey, when you want to implement something as the county, it costs a lot of money, it takes a lot of time. And if we can help to uncover some of that info, I would be happy to spend my time that way.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We looked at other municipalities here in Florida that have already started the program, and we didn't want to be the first ones out of the gate because we know there are going to be challenges. And so we're learning from Hillsborough. I think I'm working with the city of Orlando. They're about to implement their program. They just got a contractor on board. I think Osceola County has a program, and so we're taking everything from those programs and kind of applying the best practices, so we don't make some of the same mistakes or fall into some pitfalls. So.
And I trust for sure that y'all are doing that. I think that maybe there's some good information for us to consume in addition to, you have your priorities, and then I'm sure we could find other stuff that would, address other concerns. Not that you don't know how to find it. Sorry if I'm not, if I'm saying this as if you're not doing something, but.
For the studies you did of the schools, and for the schools where they had the biggest amount of speeding offenders, did you also study the surrounding land use characteristics and roadway like designs of those roads? And did you find any commonalities in some of those greatest offending schools or all those speeders?
So a lot of the schools, when we looked at, we got the information initially from the OCPS, and we found that the commonality on those there were a lot of 4-lane divided roads or 4-lane undivided. And so the more volume, the more higher the speeds were on some of those roads, and people paid less attention because there's so much going on along those corridors. But commonality, other than most of them being multi-lane, it's kind of most of what we had in common. And even some of the school zones that were single lane, we found that there were a lot of vehicles, depending on what some of the attractions are, because like one of them was, well, we looked at Oak Ridge, but that doesn't have a school zone there, so we have to put the school zone. But like when there's a lot of attractors, a lot of pedestrians that are walking, you tend to have more vehicles traversing through there a little bit at higher speeds. And so I don't know what the really correlation is there, but.
No, that's good enough for me. And what is the money being used for?
Good question. So part of the statute is that there's a breakdown. So the money has to go back into the program. So I think there's some of it's going to crossing guard retention, some of it is going to safety improvements. There's a breakdown. But each of the $100 fines, so I think out of that $100 is $60 that would come to the county. And out of that, we're paying the sheriff's office and we're making the improvements. The other money would go, I think it's crossing guard retention, safety. There's a breakdown. I can provide that for you.
Now, when you say improvements, do you mean road improvements or improvements to the program itself?
Yeah, roadway improvements. And so what we have decided as a county to use those improvements to improve those school zones. So like pedestrian safety features. And so safe routes to the school, the sidewalk gaps, and some of those things like that. We've said that the funding from this program is going to go to safety initiatives for the program that it was taken away from, or taken up for.
Great to hear. Patrick.
Just estimate the percentage of time that is required on like the sheriff's department for the assistance of the ticketing. How much would you estimate their time is required for an officer who's assigned to this?
So these officers are the traffic infraction enforcement officers. They're non-sworn officers, and so they're full-time. So even with the red light camera, they're full-time officers. But what it is a force multiplier. So rather than one officer sitting at one school in one direction, you can have one officer that's monitoring 6 schools in each direction. So, and they're not at the same rate as a regular sworn officer, so there's a savings there. But yeah, and so even with the cameras, I think we're looking at right now, what we kind of are going off of is one officer per 13 cameras. And so 13 cameras being one in each direction, so you have about 6 or 7 schools per officer. So
their efficiency is 600% essentially, because they can do 6 schools
essentially
instead of just the one. Okay, no, I appreciate the clarification because I thought it was a traditional officer, so the separation. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, these are non-sworn traffic infraction enforcement officers, and they're very effective with the red light camera program as well.
Thank you,
Jose.
Great presentation. Which commission district has the highest number of offenses?
I thought we saw the one that was is the Hunters Creek area. Yeah, so South Creek Middle School, in Discovery, I think was that District 4?
Yeah,
Or one.
Yeah.
that's 4.
District
close to
4?
me.
But it's not, I wouldn't say it was the highest number of speeders, it's just the schools that were chosen. And so like, I think there are a couple in District 1 that we can target that would have just as many speeders. I know there are a couple in District 6. I know Oak Hill Elementary is one. Sally Ride, that's District 3. Is that District 3? Yeah. And what's interesting about Sally Ride is 6th Avenue. Is that 6th or 4th Avenue? 4th Avenue. And that comes from Dowden. And so there's a bunch of trucks that use that facility. And so those aren't just cars, those are large semi-vehicles. And the kids have to cross the road there to Sally Ride Elementary School. And so we felt that was important and huge safety factor there. So I wouldn't say it was one that had more speeders than the other. It's just different locations around the county. And then, some in District 1, we have a lot of the newer schools that are being built there within the communities. So maybe in Phase 2, we'll start looking at some of those and some of the schools that we get the higher number of complaints from.
Thank you.
Yes.
Rod?
Thank you. Excellent presentations. Just as a side with my volunteering, among other things, in the city of Apopka schools, I was kind of surprised that the school selected, but that's the district in doing it. But as many as 1 in 2, as few as 1 in 4, and covering over 20 shifts plus probably another 30 shifts that I cover just assisting in and around schools. As few as 1 in 4 parents holding their phones.
Right.
And as many as 1 in 2, averages 1 in 3 over the past 2 years doing it. It's just scary. They're holding their cell phone. It's
Yeah.
Got to talk to Tallahassee about that one. Zach?
Yeah, I feel like I love hearing more information about the non-sworn traffic enforcement officers, because I feel like that's what I've been talking about a lot of the time is like, if we were able to implement something like that at intersections where people are just posting up on their phone. Like I live by 436 and Fairbanks. And twice in the last 2 weeks, my wife has sent me a photo of someone that just went up onto the sidewalk and crashed into stuff, right? And right down the street, someone crashed into the side of a Lynx bus where it's always parked on Fairbanks, right? How hard would it be for us to find the money to put some non-sworn traffic enforcement officers watching those red light cameras and then have a team of people that are down at the intersection that go, yep, this person on the car, I see him on the phone, right? We don't have those laws right now. It's not illegal to be on the phone in your car. However, we could totally create another separate realm of classifications and regulations and certifications or whatever it would be that says the same way everything else gets permitted and regulated, this is not a traffic citation, this is a different kind of infraction, right? Like we could have a community safety code and say, you violated the community safety code in your car and we saw you do it and now you have to pay a ticket.
Unless I misunderstand the law, it's my understanding that in a construction zone and school zones, it is a violation to have a handheld phone. It must be hands-free.
I think it's only legal to make a call. I don't think texting is actually against the law. And either way, it's like a $25 or $35 fine. It's absolutely nonsense.
It's not proportionate
Yeah,
to the risk
to the
it
risk,
puts
yeah.
on the community.
Again, all roads lead back to Tallahassee. Okay, any other questions for Gerald, or can we let him go home? All right, thank you so much.
All right, thank you all.
I appreciate you, great information. Thank you so much.
Oh, sorry. You can see.
Good afternoon, good evening. My name is Eugens Pierre, and I'm a senior engineer in the traffic engineering division. I'm not as a good speaker as Gerald, so you guys have to bear with me to understand me sometimes. My presentation is basically on the safety projects that Lauren and Gerald has been talking about, basically how do we go about delivering them from the traffic engineering division. For this presentation, I have a few slides for you. First, we'll talk about where do these projects come from. We'll also talk about the types of projects that we do. We'll also talk about how we prioritize these projects. We'll talk about the methods that we use to deliver some of these projects, some of the challenges that we face. We'll also talk about some innovative ways that we've come up with to deliver some of the projects that we have, and then we'll take some of your questions. First, in regards to safety projects, like they initiate from many different sources. I think Gerald mentioned the 311 program, where we get requests or complaints from citizens. Those come in and then they are evaluated by our office, and from there, then we may proceed to specific projects. Also, we get requests from the Commissioner's Office, and the Commissioner's Office possibly sometimes work with the local citizen and also some of the HOAs. And then from there, we have projects that are generated from there also. Another way we generate projects is basically we may have traffic issues in specific areas. Let's say we have Williamsburg or a specific neighborhood, Lake Jessamine Shores. We look at the area comprehensively, and then we come up with some projects that way. We also do what we call corridor-wide studies. It could be John Young Parkway, it could be Town Center Boulevard. It depends. So basically, we look at the whole corridor to see what we can do to make some improvements traffic-wise. Also, some of our projects come as a result of development and growth. Sometimes those developments and growths, area growths tend to affect traffic, specifically intersections and how they function. So we have some of our projects come through that way. And other projects we have in working with OCPS, I think from Gerald's presentation, you kind of have an idea on at certain schools, like there may be some issues that can only be addressed by having a traffic signal or making some other modifications to the road. In talking about some of the types of projects that we have, one of them is, one type is speed management projects. Those speed management projects tend to be corridor-wide. So basically, we may do a study, or we do like a speed reduction study, and then from there, we possibly have to lower the speed limit for the entire corridor. And with that, we have the use of speed feedback signs. We may use pavement markings. We may use lane modifications where we go from 12-foot lanes to 11-foot lanes. And we may do buffered bike lanes with chicaning sometimes. Sometimes we may have to install roundabouts at certain intersections. And also there are some locations where we have to use vertical deflections, and those tend to be speed tables or elevated crosswalk. Another type of projects that we do, Gerald touched on that also, we have some pedestrian safety projects. The pedestrian safety projects can be a specific sidewalk or at an intersection where we do some curb modification and things like that. We also have intersection lighting that we do to improve safety for pedestrian. We also have pedestrian signals that we install. Some of them tend to be mid-block with either delineated crossings, or we have elevated crossings for those. I think a great project that FDOT did is 441. You can see that in effect there. And one project that we're working on is on Clarkona Road, where we're putting something similar. Also, another type of pedestrian safety projects we tend to have are projects with rectangular flashing, RFBs, or rectangular rapid flashing beacons, I'm sorry. We have certain corridors where basically the blocks are kind of long and where we have to put mid-block crossings, and typically we tend to have those with RFBs, and one of the locations where we have quite a few of those is on Oak Ridge Road for the section that we improved recently. I think we have about 6 locations where we're going to put rapid flashing beacon on. We also do access management projects, and some of those typically where we have older standards where the intersection spacings or the median spacings are kind of like out of date. They can be out of date because of the proximity to an intersection or a proximity to a signal. So with those, we typically convert, like, say, a full median opening to a directional median. With those, we only have the left turn permitted only. Also, we have projects where we do median separators. Those median separators typically address the same kind of issues where we have driveways that are too close to intersections, so we can't make them right in, right out, so to speak. And we also have turning or auxiliary lanes where we have either right turn lanes or left turn lanes added to an intersection, or we may have left or right turn lane extension depending on capacity. And in some of those pictures, you see like some examples of some projects that we've done. At the top is where we've added an additional left turn lane. And then the second picture is on John Young Parkway by Americana Boulevard, where we had to convert one full median opening to an apartment complex to a directional median. And the other two are basically same kind of type of projects with directional medians that we had to convert, I think, on Town Center. Okay, another type of projects we have are obviously intersection improvement projects, and those projects tend to be signalization projects, and which we do new signals on intersections that are not already signalized, and also we have intersections that are already signalized where we have to replace them because of the basically shelf life. Like a signal typically, if it's a mass term, you can get about 30 years out of it. And eventually some of them have to be replaced, and we do those projects also. And we also do projects where we have turn lane capacity that has to be extended because the turn lanes are left or right, they're not adequate for the amount of traffic that they have to accommodate. And we do some of those projects also. And we have intersections that are either signalized or unsignalized that we have to convert to roundabouts, which in the picture you see is an intersection in District 4. I think it's Kirby Smith Road and North Shore Golf Club. And to the right is the schematic of the roundabout where designing to install there. How do we prioritize our projects? Basically, our projects are prioritized on safety needs. So like typically, we don't get called if there's not an issue. We're almost kind of like an emergency room, so to speak. One thing we look at is what the needs are for the intersection. We also look at feasibility-wise, whether or not we can do the project because our budget is limited. And some projects tend to be a little bit too much for us, and those projects possibly go to engineering to implement. We also look at project readiness, meaning what do we mean by project readiness? Project readiness for us means like how much effort we have to put into the design and also whether or not we need right-of-way. Like if we need right-of-way, then obviously that's going to be a longer-term project. And those projects tend to go through engineering. And based on our evaluation, if a project, let's say, right-of-way is not needed, then we tend to move on with those projects. On some signal projects, we may have a need for right-of-way, but those we can do them with easements, basically where we don't have to buy right-of-way, where we can do an easement with either the surrounding property owners or HOAs and deliver those projects that way. Also, we look at the impact to the transportation network. So we look at where we get more bang for our buck and also where the safety needs are most pronounced. We also look at, like I mentioned before, like the amount of money that we have and the resources that we have to get those projects done. And another thing we do, we look at the benefit cost analysis, where we look at basically where we get the most benefit out of whichever project we do, whether it be a signal or it's a roundabout, so to speak. For project delivery, like our projects we tend to group them in short-term, mid-term, and long-term. So shorter-term projects, those we tend to do in-house, where basically county staff in traffic engineering, we develop work orders, and those projects are also implemented with county staff or with some of the term contractors that we have. Those term contracts basically are contractors that are contracted to us, and once we have the work order, basically we know what the costs are, and we just give them the plans, and they build those things. And those projects tend to be smaller type projects, like you see the crossing there, and also some of those little traffic separators to improve safety. And another type of project delivery method we use is what we call design, bid, build. So with design, bid, build, so we have a project identified, whether it's a signal or a roundabout. We have 3 to 4 consultants who are working for us, consulting firm. Basically, those projects are assigned to them where they design the project. And then we take the project and we advertise it, and we get a contractor, and then the contractor build the project. So that's another method that we have. And then also some of those projects, we can deliver them with term contractors also, because like we have contractors that work for us who build signals. I think we have like 3 of those type of contractors working for us. Lastly, design build projects, which is one aspect of project delivery that we don't use as of yet, and I think that's one thing we're working on to be able to deliver projects to design build in the future. Some of the challenges we have, I think going from Lawrence, presentation, project scope creep is affect all types of project from capital improvement to safety projects. Unclear project goals or objectives in some of these sometimes you may have a scope for a project and then through design and also community input, the project kind of like grow and things get added and things like that. Also funding is a challenge for everybody. There's basically not enough money for the needs that we have. The economic climate, it depends on how good things are and how much money we have available to carry out some of our projects. Also, we have issues sometimes with contractor availability. Like, say for a signal, like we have, I think, in the state about 5 contractors who build signals in our area. And sometimes just about every one of them are busy. So to get a project built can take you years, even though someone would think, well, it's just a signal, you should be able to install it in a year or so, but it's not that easy. Also, we have some limitations with our in-house personnel. That goes without saying, so I don't really need to go too much in depth in that. Some innovative ways that we've used to deliver some of our projects. One, we identify more affordable improvement alternatives. I think earlier Lauren talked to you guys about a modular roundabout. We have one location in the near future where we're planning on implementing a modular roundabout. And with that, it's at a fraction of the cost that a regular roundabout would cost us. And also it's something that we can implement quicker and also something that we can monitor to see basically long-term if a full-blown roundabout would be ideal at that location. We also use what we call quick curb or temporary traffic curbs. Those we use them from anything to do traffic calming, also to do like median delineators or to do the directional medians. We do some of those sometimes with quick curb. Other ways we use basically is we coordinate improvements with other programs. I think Gerald mentioned that a little bit, and Lauren went over that a little bit also, is where we have the resurfacing program, and we use that to implement, say, traffic calming. And how do we do that? We repurpose the lanes, we can change the striping, we can introduce buffered bike lanes and things like that. We also use the CIP program to help implement some of our safety needs. Typically, like if you have a CIP project where, let's say, an intersection may need signalization or a roundabout would be a better option, then we try to work that with the design team to see if that can be implemented. Also, what we've been working on is identifying other funding sources. One of the funding sources that we've used lately has been the investment funds, where investment funds are typically, are typically funds that are earmarked for a specific corridor. So with those, we've been able to carry out quite a few projects. One project that comes to mind is the signal on Weatherby at the middle school there. That project, most of the construction was covered by Invest Fund. And also we have a couple of projects on Turkey Lake Road and also we were able to use Invest Fund to supplement CIP to deliver that project. Also, the special program, the ATSP program that the mayor implemented a couple of years ago, that's been a godsend really in helping us to deliver some of our projects. Projects that we probably were not going to be able to do now, we're able to get them done in conjunction with ATSP and some of the other funds that we have. Another aspect of where we try to be innovative to kind of deliver projects, it's also applying for federal grants. The Safe Street for All grant that we recently applied for, I think Lauren mentioned that, the $25 million grant, and we've also applied for other grants for other programs, but this is mostly for safety projects. And for, I think we mentioned an issue with safety and also like sidewalk gaps, like around schools. Well, we have the Safe Route to School program with the state that we can use to also supplement some of the money we have to alleviate some of the safety needs there. With that, I'll take some questions.
Okay, thank you so much. Any questions from members of the commission?
Go ahead, Ron. I would just say thank you. Very nice presentation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Everything was super clear. The only thing I didn't really understand is the investment aspect.
Okay.
Is that like funds that Public Works has that are, budgeted to be spent way down the line, and then you're able to invest them in some kind of an account that?
I think the invest funds, if I'm correct, are funds typically that the commissioners and the county commissioners earmark for a specific corridor, and those funds have to be spent on that corridor. Typically, I think like every year that we met in at Public Works where engineering will tell us, okay, you have some investment funds for this or that corridor, and then we plan on, we basically look at what projects and what locations we have where we can spend that money.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's
Yeah.
essentially, it's additional money that's being budgeted by the commissioners for specific projects or for specific areas.
For specific locations, exactly.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. And those have been very helpful, so the more the better.
Always the more the better.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much for that presentation. Thanks for hanging in there with us. So we'll try to get you home. Hopefully they'll let you come in late tomorrow or something. I don't know. I don't have that authority. Okay, we're getting loopy. We're 5.5 hours in here, folks, for our day here at TransMAC. Let's go to member comments. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to talk about here this evening?
You looked right at me as if you knew that I was just going to say it again.
I looked up and down the entire dais here. There's no judgment. There's no anticipation.
Yeah, I think those numbers, the school zone stuff, like, I had to really, like, pull myself together and, like, I felt like I was going to cry. Truly, like, to think that this can be a reality in our community. And I totally empathize and I understand, right? Like, being in the car and feeling so pressed and stressed out, and you're scrambling for control anywhere that you can get it in your life. And in the car, you can get a lot more control by simply pushing your foot further down on the gas. You get more time, right? But somehow, like, something has broken in our brains. If that is a reasonable course of action in a school zone, like, I can see how it breaks down in all these other places where it's like, we're just driving and, like, what can I be bothered? And I'm so crazy right now and I'm trying to get home or get to this place I need to be, and I feel like I don't have much control over my life, but when I'm in the car and I, like, put more speed on, I'm getting more control. But for that to break down in the school zone where it's clearly like you're being told to drive extra slow because there's a bunch of tiny bodies moving through here that don't even understand the way that space and traveling objects move completely. And that we can't be collectively pressed and told that we have to find that inner conviction to slow down is so alarming. It really, like, yeah, I wish that there was a way to be like, hey, everyone who's in your phone looking at something, hear me when I'm saying this, right? But I know that it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pumped for the speed camera program in the school zones. They just, as Jared said, they just flat out work. They just work. So I'm really excited. Only unless is my Timber Creek High School right by my house was on the initial list I think the OCPS provided to the county. And I was like, please, I ride by there every day with my kids on the way to school, up to elementary school, past it. But we didn't make the cut this time, so maybe next time. Anything else from members of the question?
Yeah, sprawl. I mean, why we have so many people speeding is because somehow what we have done for the last 30 years in Orange County of creating the sprawl, where someone has to travel so many far distance to get to either a medical appointment, to get to do some groceries, to go to work, and they're speeding for that particular reason. They don't wake up 30 minutes before some way they can maintain the speed limit. They waste their time in the morning and they speed because they had to go long distances to get to their final destination. So hopefully in the future we'll have the planning department to come over here so we can talk about land use. Because if we can do more urban infill, it means those trips will be shortened. So it means that there's no way for somebody to speed because I have such a long distance to get to my final destination. Why we don't build more than urban infill so we can then tell people live closer to the places you need to go to. There's no need to rush or need to go higher speed limit because whatever business you need to do is right there in the neck of the woods.
I wanted to say I did contact planning, so there was some scheduling conflicts, but they should be here for December, so.
Thank you, Lauren.
Well, and I would say we tried that with Vision 2050, and lo and behold, Tallahassee, yet again.
Say no.
So, anything else?
I just want to say thank you, everyone, for the presentations and to the committee for the time. Like, the information was so great and informative.
Excellent as always. We have great staff here at Orange County. We are very, very lucky.
Mirror what everyone else has said. I mean, we've got a tremendous group of people that we're working with up here, and the work that's being done by the people in the county is tremendous, and thank you.
Absolutely. Okay.
Just one question. Can we just get the dates for the next meetings?
Great one, Patrick. So our next meeting, our first district meeting out in the district.
District meeting, October 9th. Then the following is November 13th, and then December 15th.
And October 9th is out in the district, right? District 3?
District 3, November 13th in District 6, and December 15th, District 1.
Okay. Looking forward to those meetings and having some of those local residents come out to us.
Sorry, what was the last one? December 15th?
December 15th. It's a Monday.
District 1. And what's the location for that one? Just so I know.
West Orange Recreation Center.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. We'll definitely make sure everyone is aware of the dates, times, and locations, especially for those district meetings.
The only question is, do we have any other work sessions planned at this time?
Not yet. Not at this time. We'll see if we need another one. Hopefully not in October. We'll see, though. If we need to, we'll do it. We'll do it. I promise.
I mean, would it be unreasonable for us to maybe have like a work session on Zoom somehow? Like
We can't.
We can't. Okay, yeah. So it's unreasonable.
Yeah. I don't know if it's unreasonable. It's just not allowed. I'm not going to talk about its reasonableness. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.